Elena wiped her forehead with the back of her dirty hand as the Arizona sun beat down on her father's old garage. The faded sign above the door barely hung on, but inside, her tools hummed like instruments in a concert hall. Cars didn't just break, they spoke, and she listened. Locals came to her when no one else could figure it out. They said she had magic in her hands, but magic didn't pay the bills. She fixed carburetors and clutches with the same love a painter gives to canvas, all while dodging final notices on the counter. The day Brandon Voss arrived, the garage smelled of oil and grilled cheese. His slick matte black Rolls-Royce didn't belong on that cracked desert road, and neither did the man who stepped out of it. Sharp suit, impatient frown, phone glued to his hand. He didn't see Eleanor at first. He saw the dirt, the rust, and assumed incompetence. "I was told you fix what others can't," he said flatly. Elena shrugged. "If it breathes, I'll revive it." He pointed behind him. "The Maserati's dead. 4 specialists failed. Think your magic works on arrogance." Brandon's custom-made Maserati MC20 was parked awkwardly on a flatbed, the hood open like a defeated warrior. She walked around it, touching the curves like reading Braille. "This engine's been insulted," she muttered. He raised an eyebrow. "Excuse me," she tapped the chassis. "Too many hands in it. You smothered it with expensive tools. What it needed was a conversation." Brandon folded his arms. "It's a car." Eleanor smiled. "It's a soul." She got to work with her old wrench, tape, and grit-stained gloves, ignoring his hovering judgment and his ticking watch. Hours passed. Brandon paced outside, taking call after call, each louder than the last. "No, I don't care what the stock's doing. I'm stuck in a dust bowl," he barked. Inside, Elena crouched beneath the beast, hands moving like a concert pianist's. Guided by feel, not flash, she found the blockage, something even diagnostics missed, a bypassed filter, poorly routed. Simple, invisible, just like her, she cleaned it, rerouted it, tuned the engine with more heart than hardware. When she finally turned the key, the Maserati growled, smooth, deep, grateful. It wasn't fixed, it was alive. Brandon stepped inside and froze as the engine purred like a satisfied lion. His mouth hung open. "You actually did it." Elena leaned against the wall, wiping her hands. "Told you, they treated it like a machine. I treated it like a story." He didn't smile. He stared. "What do you want? Name your price." She shook her head. "This isn't about money. It's about respect." He frowned. "You're turning down a blank check?" Elena smirked. "You're not used to hearing no, huh?" He paused. "Come with me. I have something that actually needs fixing." They drove north for hours in silence, the desert turning to suburbia, and then to the towering glass of Phoenix. His private garage looked more like a Silicon Valley lab, robotic arms, engineers in suits, polished floors. Brandon gestured toward a sleek silver prototype, half-assembled. "This is our next-gen EV, breakthrough tech. We're stuck on power efficiency. My engineers are stumped." Elena eyed the blueprints, scanning rows of formulas like street signs. "You tried to make it obey. You never asked it how it wanted to breathe." He blinked. "You talk like these things are alive." Elena pulled her toolbox from the Maserati trunk and stepped into their sterile world, with mud on her boots. The engineers whispered, watching her rewire the system by hand, bypassing their software to test real-world response. She changed 3 things, minor on paper, massive in performance. When she flipped the switch, the prototype didn't just run, it soared. It hummed like hope, efficient and fierce. The lead engineer gasped. Brandon said nothing. He stood still, watching. "Something beyond tech." "How?" he whispered. Elena packed up. "You solve with money. I solve with empathy." She turned to leave. Later that evening, Brandon stood alone in the same lab, staring at the humming engine. His billion-dollar company had been outwitted by a girl with junkyard tools and a whispering touch. He played back every word she'd said, about breath, about soul. His empire had speed, noise, and data, but no pulse. He remembered the look in her eyes, how she bent over the machine like it was a child in pain. Not a product, a promise. And suddenly all the wealth in his pockets felt empty. She hadn't just fixed his car, she'd rewired his values. Elena returned to her garage by night, the Maserati parked quietly beside her father's old pickup. She didn't tell anyone where. She went, didn't need to. A new letter was taped to her door the next morning. "Offer still stands," it read. She smiled, tearing it in half. Behind her, a teenager peeked in. "Are you the lady who fixes broken engines?" Eleanor knelt. "I fix stories. Cars just happen to be how they speak." The girl beamed. "Can you teach me?" Eleanor handed her a wrench. "Only if you're ready to listen, not just fix." Back in Phoenix, Brandon attended a board meeting in silence. His usual charts and forecasts didn't appear on the screen. Instead, he showed a photo of Elena in her garage, oil on her cheek, eyes full of fire. "Gentlemen," he began, "we've been building without understanding, speed without soul. That ends today." His investors were confused. He didn't care. He'd spent years chasing perfection with dollars, but she'd shown him something purer. Integrity, humility, connection. Things his labs couldn't code. He didn't want her to join his empire. He wanted to make his empire worthy of her spirit. That night he sent another letter, not a job offer, a thank you. It read, "You reminded me what innovation really means. You changed more than this engine. You changed the man behind it." He never got a reply, but she kept the note taped to the inside of her toolbox, beside a photo of her father, and the first dollar she ever earned fixing a neighbor's Chevy. People came from cities now, bringing problems no one else could fix. She welcomed them all, not with logos contracts, but with a whisper, "Tell me what it's been through." Elena's reputation grew, not through ads or websites, but word of mouth carried like gospel. Even Brandon's engineers began showing up unannounced, just to watch her work, to study how her hands translated metal into meaning. She never scolded them, she never flaunted, she taught. Slowly, her tiny garage became something bigger, not a business, a movement. Young women from all over the country wrote letters saying she'd inspired them to believe that skill mattered more than suits. Brandon donated parts anonymously. She knew it was him, and that was enough. The day she got invited to speak at a national auto summit, Elena hesitated. She'd never worn heels or written speeches, but she showed up in boots and gloves, holding that same old wrench. Standing before industry titans, she said, "You build machines, I build relationships with them. If we stop listening to what we create, we'll lose the ability to create at all." Cameras flashed. Silence followed. Then a standing ovation. Brandon, in the crowd, didn't clap first. He stood. The rest followed. And for the first time, Elena's name echoed louder than any engine. The next morning, back in her garage, Elena didn't act different. She didn't raise her prices or hire assistants. She fixed a local's Ford with the same care she gave that prototype. Fame didn't change her. It clarified her. That same girl with dirt under her nails and fire in her heart had once left a billionaire speechless. But that wasn't her win. Her real victory was this, proof that when you lead with purpose, not pride, you don't just fix machines. You fix what money never could. Brandon Voss hadn't stopped thinking about Elena since the moment she walked away from his garage, her back straight, her clothes still streaked with engine grease. He'd spent his whole life surrounded by the best minds money could buy, yet in one afternoon, she'd solved what none of them could. The way she listened to that engine like it was telling her a secret had unnerved him. He had spent years trying to build perfection with formulas and precision, and she just felt it. That feeling wouldn't leave him. It was more than admiration, it was awe. The following week, Brandon stood in his elite innovation lab, surrounded by silence. His engineers hovered around a stalled prototype engine. and eco-friendly. Powertrain years in the making, but still missing one vital piece. No one knew how to finish it. Money had built the machine, but instinct was missing. That's when he picked up his phone. He didn't call his board, he called Elena. At first, she didn't answer. When she finally did, her voice was dry, cautious. She didn't trust suits, she didn't trust promises, but she agreed. Elena arrived at the Voss R&D facility in boots stained with Arizona dust. She walked past spotless chrome, lab coats, and billion-dollar tech like it meant nothing. Engineers whispered, executives scoffed. Brandon met her at the glass doors, gave her a silent nod, and guided her to the prototype engine. It was sleek, beautiful, and completely lifeless. Elena stood before it, tilted her head, and placed a hand on the core. It was cold, too clean. She muttered under her breath, "It's scared to run." One of the engineers laughed. "It's not a dog, it's a machine." She didn't respond. She circled the engine, then asked for a crate of tools. Real tools, not digital. Calibration systems, wrenches, wire, tape. Brandon granted the request without question. As his team watched, Elena dismantled a panel with the kind of confidence that made men uncomfortable. Her hands worked quickly, intuitively, bypassing the screens and focusing on the metal's rhythm. She hummed as she worked, the same way her father once did under rusted hoods. 6 hours passed, no breaks, no complaints. Her fingers were black with grease. Her eyes locked onto each wire, as if it spoke to her. The engine's design was efficient but heartless. It needed humanity, not more polish. Finally, she adjusted the fuel-air sync manually, whispering, "Breathe." Brandon's team watched in disbelief. Elena stood, wiped, her hands on her jeans, and said, "Start it." The lead engineer hesitated. Brandon stepped forward himself and turned the key. The engine coughed, then roared. The room fell silent, save for the clean, rhythmic hum of the prototype. One engineer dropped his clipboard. Another murmured, "What did she even do?" Elena didn't explain. She never did. Brandon, speechless, looked at the engine, then back at her. "You made it alive," he whispered. She shrugged. "I just let it speak." That's when it hit him. She hadn't fixed a machine. She'd released its soul. No software update could ever replace that kind of connection. It wasn't science. It was love of craft. He led her into a private conference room, offered her a blank check. She looked at it, smirked, and slid it back. "You want me? You respect me, not just when the engine dies, but before." Brandon nodded slowly. "You're not an employee, you're the future." He offered her a lead role, full control, a seat at the table. She didn't say yes immediately. "I'll think about it," she said, then walked out. He watched her. Boots leave dirt on his marble floors, and he smiled for the first time in weeks. News of the breakthrough spread fast. Voss Innovations credited Elena by name in a press release. Media outlets tried to dig into her background. They found only dust, grit, and a girl who never graduated college, but who built engines that beat the future. Interview requests poured in. She declined them all. Instead, she went back to her father's garage, tuned a rusted Mustang, and disappeared from the spotlight. She didn't care about fame. She cared about motion, the kind that came from the heart, not headlines. Months later, Brandon visited her garage unannounced. No press, no cameras, just him. She was elbow deep in a busted Chevy engine. He waited quietly. When she finally looked up, he handed her a blueprint, a concept car, his latest vision. "It needs your touch," he said. She took the paper, studied it, and said nothing. He didn't beg. He didn't offer money. He simply said, "Teach us." That's when she finally smiled, for the first time in front of him. "All right," she said, "but I build it my way." Together, they assembled a team, not of engineers, but of mechanics, veterans, high school dropouts, girls with calloused hands. They didn't run simulations. They built prototypes in grease-stained workshops and tested them on desert roads. The car took shape, rough, rebellious, and breathtaking. It didn't just run. It flew. It didn't just win awards. It changed how the world saw talent. Elena became a quiet legend, Not for fame, not for riches, but for proving that raw passion could outdrive privilege every single time. Brendan sat beside her during the car's first public demo. Reporters swarmed, trying to shout her name. She stayed quiet. The engine roared to life and the car took off, a blur of chrome and fire. The crowd gasped. Sponsors called, investors offered millions, but Elena kept her eyes on the road. As she pulled back into the garage, she looked at Brandon and said, "Still think money fixes everything?" He laughed. "Not anymore." She tossed him the keys. "Then you've learned something." That night, Brandon hosted a private dinner. He offered a toast, not to investors, but to Elena. Some people change companies. She changed the soul of innovation. She raised her glass, but didn't speak. Her father would have been proud. She could feel it. From a dusty garage to the heart of a billion-dollar industry, she hadn't just built engines. She'd built belief in herself, in others like her, in those the world overlooked. Her hands were still stained with grease, but now they shaped the future. Years later, young girls would point to her pictures in workshops and say, "She did it." First, universities would teach her designs. Engineers would quote her methods. But Elena would still wake up early, tighten her boots, and walk to the garage, because in her heart nothing beat the sound of an engine breathing for the first time, not even applause. She hadn't set out to make history. She just wanted to fix what was broken. And in doing so, she fixed people who never thought they could matter. Brandon Voss remained one of the world's richest men, but he stopped wearing suits to work. He started visiting community garages. He donated quietly, hired loudly, and always remembered the moment a girl rewired his billion-dollar vision. She didn't need money. She didn't want titles. She just wanted to be seen. And when she finally was, she showed something far greater than speed or style. She showed them what happens when talent is finally trusted. In the corner of her garage, above the toolbox her father left behind, Elena framed a simple photo. It was the first car she ever fixed, the broken-down Mustang she'd brought back to life before anyone knew her name. Beneath it, she wrote just 3 words, "Built, not bought." It wasn't about the car, it never had been. It was about who you become when no one believes in you until you force them to. Because some engines run on fuel, others run on fire. Elena ran on both.